players into the sector, the agro-based industry, and I will end up with some key messages for the agricultural sector in Ogun State. But first of all, many of you may not know where IIT is. IIT is in Ibadan, and I'm based there. It was established since 1967, and we've been working with Nigeria and many other countries in sub-Saharan Africa to help the small-scale farmers, to uplift them, to provide them with food security, income, and also job creation. But we also have substations in several of the other countries. But I have been in Ibadan for the past 19 years. Then I went on a national assignment to Sierra Leone for 5 years to create a new consolidated Sierra Leone Agricultural Research Institute, and I just came back to head the partnership division of IIT in the last 4 months. I want to stress here that the path the government of Ogun State is taking is a welcome one when they came up with the 5 cardinal programs. And in fact, I'm going to talk on one of them today, which is the increased agricultural production and industrialization. As was said this morning, you must have an agricultural policy documented, a roadmap, something that can guide you towards achieving a certain goal. And I think this is also showing that this is what the government has done since the current administration came to power. And the rationale for doing that, because it has realized that over 70% of the population is occupied with agriculture, and in 2007, despite there had been agricultural policy before, but this had not helped the small farmers to that great extent. The policy helped outline the general steps for government agencies, but no specific policy objectives and strategies that will lead to greater private sector engagement, because private sector leadership is what will drive the agricultural sector in Nigeria, or in general, specifically Ogun State, and even the whole of Africa. So generally, crop productivity has not improved, investment has not risen, and farmers' incomes have remained low. And if you look at the Federal Agricultural Transformation Agenda of Nigeria, you will realize in the southwest, the target commodity crops, oil palm, cocoa, rice, cassava, livestock, and fisheries, 4 of those crops are also the priority crops for Ogun State agricultural sector. So there could be some complementarity between the federal ATA, as it's called, Agricultural Transformation Agenda, and that of the agricultural led programs in the state. Because as I said, there should always be subsidiarity. It's not from federal government, but from the local government of the state to the state government, then to the federal government. In that way, you capitalize on the principle of subsidiarity. But some of the strategies for agricultural transformation, I just want to give some general ones, is first of all, identification of market opportunities and constraints for the state. Then the development of sustainable and efficient competitive production systems. Then diversify income generation activities through expanded utilization. Like for cassava, there are 1,000 uses of cassava, but only few are known in Nigeria, so diversify the utilization base. There is also infrastructure investments, private sector leadership, supportive fiscal policies, policy options for increasing the productivity, utilization, and commercialization, and as important, accessible market information system to the farmers. Then the government should always catalyze the development of viable commercial enterprises. In the case of Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam, some of the key elements that led to significant improvement of the agricultural sector is one, long-term investment, technology upgrading, institutional reforms, and changes in state-society relations. And having read quite a lot from the literature and also from the media, I want to say at this point Ogun State is in the right direction, and it could do better by moving on with some of the other things I will put on. But I know there are policy initiatives and programs underlining commitments to be business and investment friendly and to create the best investment destination in Africa. I am a Sierra Leonean, and we also have the same principle. And if you may have heard this morning, the one-stop shop for investors to come and get their business going in a country is very important, because it used to be a bottleneck for many direct foreign investments in the past years. Then, to provide the enabling environment for investors at all levels, recognize the need to upgrade infrastructure, the land acquisition policy we heard about this morning, supporting existing farmers and investing heavily to attract and support large-scale farming and value addition in the form of agricultural processing. Then, attention of investment policy to the PPP we have had in all the presentations this morning. But the key is to make full utility of the agricultural value chain, which is an holistic approach, moving you from the inputs, production, right on to marketing, consumption, and the affiliated interventions such as public research, information, public extension, collaboration, and promotion projects, as well as infrastructure, the legal framework, that is the laws on taxes, and other ancillary activities like trade promotion, fairs, and so on, producer associations, advisory, joint marketing, and business development services, called commonly BDS. But having done all these things, I will take the case of Nigeria in general and Ogun State in particular, referring to some examples of industries in Ogun State. I'll be referring to one, the Eka Agro that used to be on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. I'll refer to the Thai farms around Shagamu. I'll also refer to the Agro-Atlantic ethanol industry. These have become aware of the potential of cassava, in this case cassava, and they have captured that awareness to develop their industries because they know it's profitable. But one problem that Ogun State needs and Nigeria in general needs to solve is the one that will ensure the regularity of supply in sufficient quantities of uniform and high quality products to the market. That's a big challenge. The Eka Agro at the expressway suffered from that. Thai farm is suffering from that right now. It's not producing to capacity. Allied Atlantic are supposed to be requiring about 260 tons of cassava tubers a day. They are getting averagely about 80 tons of cassava a day. That's a big problem. But the reason for that is the yields in farmer fields are still low. And the reasons why they are low are many. And there are many players that have to come to make sure that that increase in yield is translated to transfer of the products to these agro-industries. So therefore, there must be an efficient and effective supply chain with lower cost of production. The necessary inputs that should go with cassava to increase the yield. CNN in America had a program with the Zimbabwean farmers in Kwara State. That's where they declared themselves, the Zimbabwean farmers, that they were getting 50 tons per hectare in their farms. But Nigeria, what's the national average? Is about 11-12 tons per hectare. So we need to improve that to at least 25 tons per hectare with at least moderate inputs. Then the other thing to lower down the cost of production and even increase yield is that we must mechanize, because hired labor in Nigeria in the last 20 years has increased fourfold in real terms. Then we need to consider land development, and I think it was presented this morning that Ogun State is doing that. That's why I said they are in the right direction, but I will allude to that later. And then, while most of the national agricultural development programs failed in Nigeria was because of the inadequate extension service. So if Ogun State should ensure that the farmers practice the best management practice so that they can enhance their productivity and production, there must be strengthened extension service. I always refer to what I call the integrated commodity approach for competitive production, processing, marketing of value-added products, and I use the case of cassava because I believe that the hoe and the cutlass will never feed Africa. I also believe that the small, about 1 hectare average, fragmented and scattered small farms in Africa will never feed Africa. So what then do we need? We need land development wherein Ogun State will say, I am going to develop farmlands in several areas. I had that this morning, so that you can even partition it to small-scale farmers, but it is in one contiguous area. That gives you economy of scale in the use of inputs, tractorization, other mechanization like cassava planter, cassava harvester, cassava weeder, cassava sprayer. I have a good picture of it here, but it will not reflect. Then within that vicinity, you have other ancillary services like farm gate processing, and you have the extension taking care to ensure that they produce the right quantity and quality, and the industry is proximal to this contiguous farm area. In other words, it's similar to what was called the farm settlement schemes. But what made the farm settlement schemes fail? After a while, I think that was a brilliant idea of Chief Obafemi Awolowo for Southwest Nigeria. And I think it should be adopted again, but we should learn from the lessons of its failure and then try to provide solutions for that. And it's one way where you can easily introduce mechanization and get the youths back into productive agriculture. This integrated approach, stakeholders in the planning and implementation should ensure that they adopt the innovation platform systems, which is exactly the same like what Mr. Fox was talking this morning about the advisory board, where you have the policymakers, the producers, the value-added processors, exporters, machine fabricators, buyers and transporters, agro-allied industry, the financial institutions, the market information service provider, all coming together within a platform to discuss their needs, the win-win situation, and those who can provide solutions, because they are all together, can provide those solutions. And there, when a problem like irregular supply of finished products goes to the industry, that's where they can organize the farmers into groups to do cluster farming and so on, so that they can bulk quantities to get to them, so that they will not miss on their contracts that they would have signed with overseas importers or national domestic industries. Then the funding for such association of engaging the private sector can come from 3 areas: the public-private partnership or joint ventures that has been alluded to this morning, then the private sector investment, which I'll come to later, and the foreign direct investment for multinationals in the international arena. But the bottom line we should know when we go into such partnerships is that the bottom line for the investor is maximization of profit. Whereas for the government of Ogun State is food and nutritional security, income generation, and job creation of its people. So they are going in 2 directions. So what you should ensure is a win-win situation where the investor benefits and the government and the people of Ogun State benefits. Some strategies for encouraging private sector investment: one could be more meaningful tax relief to farms that use agri products as intermediate products, inputs. Special window in Bank of Industry agreed to finance large, small farms partnership. Special financing and grant scheme for farms to develop new agriculture-based products, and encourage equity financing for new startups. The Federal Agricultural Transformation Agenda has provided a number of incentives which is national in nature, and Ogun State can capitalize on it as well, which is the 0% duty on agricultural machinery and equipment imports, removal of restriction on areas of investment and maximum equity ownership in investment by foreign investors, no currency exchange controls, that is free transfer of capital, profit and dividends to wherever you want, constitutional guarantees against nationalization and expropriation, pioneer tax holiday for agricultural investments, and infrastructural support with special focus on staple crop processing zone for power, water and electricity.
I will encourage Dr. Dixon to work towards 2 minutes.
Yeah. My proposition is that financing a PPP for a medium to long-term period, 15 to 20 years, I'll take cassava for example. Government could commit over 200 million for 15 years, with at least 75 million going to farm production research, 50 million going to product development R&D, 25 million going to consumer market development and exports, 30 million community level SME cluster development, and 20 million funding for medium-sized farms supply chain development. And taking the case of cassava, for which Ogun State is the largest producer in the country, There could be some policy alignment that will create the market pool to encourage, like the textile industries in Lagos, Ogun State, to use 30% of local cassava starch with 10% increase every year. Like the confectionery industry, bread, biscuits, and so on, to use up to 40% local cassava flour as composite wheat flour. And like Allied Atlantic alcohol distilleries derive 80% of their ethanol from cassava rather than importing, and then progressively increasing that quantity.